Imagine two old friends sitting down for coffee. One believes in God, the other doesn't. The atheist looks his friend straight in the eye and asks a question that cuts right to the heart of what we think we know about faith, happiness, and the human mind. If believing in God is supposed to give people comfort, purpose, and lower anxiety, then why do the studies show that convinced atheists often have the best physical health and the lowest rates of psychiatric symptoms, sometimes even better than many religious people? That question isn't just a gotcha moment. It's the gateway to one of the most fascinating areas of modern psychology. The minds of people with no religion, atheists, agnostics, and the growing group researchers simply call knowns. And today, we're diving deep into what the science actually says. No stereotypes, no bias, just evidence-based psychology. Let's start with the basics. Knowns aren't a single group. They include hardcore atheists who are certain God doesn't exist, agnostics who say we can't know, and people who simply don't identify with any religion. What they share, according to decades of peer-reviewed research, is a distinct psychological profile that challenges old ideas about faith being necessary for a healthy mind. First, cognitive style. Multiple large-scale studies and meta-analyses show that non-religious people tend to score higher on tests of analytic and reflective thinking. One of the most famous tools is the cognitive reflection test, a short quiz that pits your gut instinct against careful logic. People who override their first intuitive answer are more likely to question supernatural beliefs that feel intuitively true to many. This analytic atheism link is modest but consistent across cultures, including places as different as the United States, the United Kingdom, and even India. It's not that non-believers are smarter on average. It's that their default mode is to pause, analyze, and demand evidence rather than accept tradition or authority on faith alone. They value rationality, science, and skepticism. That thinking style often leads them to examine religious claims critically. And once they do, the worldview shifts. This ties directly into personality. Using the well-established Big Five model, meta-analyses find that religious people, on average, score higher in agreeableness and conscientiousness, traits that help them fit into social rules and communities. Non-religious individuals, by contrast, tend to score higher in openness to experience. They're more comfortable with novelty, unconventional ideas, and questioning the status quo. They're often more individualistic. This isn't a flaw, it's a trade-off. Greater openness fuels creativity and intellectual exploration, but it can sometimes mean less automatic conformity to group norms. Now, here's where the data gets surprising and directly answers the question our atheist friend asked in that cafe: mental health and well-being. A major 2018 national study looked at thousands of Americans and found something striking. Convinced atheists reported the best physical health among secular groups and often outperformed some religious categories. They also showed significantly lower levels of psychiatric symptoms, anxiety, paranoia, obsession, compulsion, compared to non-affiliated theists, people who believe in God but have no religious community. The worst outcomes? People stuck in uncertainty. The research is clear. What matters most isn't whether you believe or not. It's certainty and a coherent worldview. When non-religious people feel solid in their atheism or agnosticism, and especially when they have secular communities or humanist groups for belonging, their happiness, life satisfaction, and health match or exceed those of many religious people. Recent surveys like the 2020 Non-Religious Engagement and Wellbeing Study confirm this. Lifelong nouns often report levels of well-being identical to religious folks. The key predictor isn't the absence of God, it's whether their non-religion feels comforting rather than empty. Equally important is how non-religious people fulfill their deep human need for meaning, morality, and belonging. Without traditional faith communities, many find purpose through scientific exploration, the awe of nature, artistic expression, volunteering, and strong personal relationships. Research shows they tend to base their moral decisions on empathy, fairness, and reducing suffering rather than religious rules or divine commands. They often experience profound feelings of wonder and transcendence while contemplating the cosmos, understanding natural laws, or witnessing acts of human kindness. This proves that a secular worldview can provide rich, fulfilling sources of purpose and community when people actively build supportive networks and embrace curiosity about life. Deconversion, the process of leaving religion, can be tough. It often involves intellectual doubt, moral disagreements with religious institutions, and a period of rebuilding meaning. For some, there's temporary stress or even religious trauma, but most recover within 2 to 5 years, replacing old sources of purpose with new ones: deep relationships, scientific discovery, awe in nature, and personal growth. The data shows no inherent psychological deficit in non-religion. It's simply a different path to the same human needs. Let's talk about some of the greatest minds who embodied these traits. Bertrand Russell, the Nobel Prize-winning philosopher and outspoken atheist, lived a life of relentless analytic thinking and openness. His famous essay, Why I Am Not a Christian, was pure reflective reasoning, exactly the cognitive style research links to non-belief. Carl Sagan, the beloved astronomer, showed that same openness and wonder at the universe without needing a deity. His Cosmos series inspired millions to find meaning in science and the cosmos itself. Stephen Hawking, one of the greatest physicists of our time, was a confirmed atheist who said the universe could be explained without a creator. Richard Dawkins, evolutionary biologist, turned analytic skepticism into a global movement with books like The God Delusion. These men weren't cold or broken. Their high openness, reflective thinking, and evidence-based worldview fueled groundbreaking contributions to philosophy, science, and our understanding of reality. They represent the strengths non-religious psychology can unlock when certainty and purpose are present. Now, let's tackle a question many people wonder about. Why does it seem so hard for many atheists to ever become theists again? The science gives us a clear answer. Once that knowledge of independent, critical thinking develops inside someone, it's extremely difficult to erase. Think about it like learning to read. Before you could read, certain scribbles on a page looked like nothing. After you learn, you can't unsee the words, even if you try. The same thing happens with analytic thinking and scientific literacy. When a person starts questioning intuitive beliefs, studies the evidence, and builds a coherent naturalistic worldview, that cognitive shift becomes foundational. Deconversion research shows that intellectual reasons, contradictions in scripture, the problem of evil, or simply better explanations from science, are the strongest predictors of leaving religion. Once those mental pathways are strengthened, reverting often feels like forcing yourself to believe something your brain now processes as less probable. Sure, a small number of people do switch back, often after major life crises or social pressure, but for those whose non-belief came through deep reflection and evidence, the knowledge of how to think for themselves doesn't disappear. It becomes part of who they are. As one large study on apostasy put it, the analytic habits and openness that led them away tend to keep them there. So what does all this research tell us in the end? People with no religion aren't psychologically defective or lost. They tend to be more analytic, more open to new ideas, and, when they have certainty and community, just as happy and healthy as anyone else. Their strengths lie in flexibility, rationality, and finding meaning in the natural world. The rise of knowns isn't a crisis. It's a reflection of how human minds work when given the freedom to think deeply and honestly. If you're religious, maybe this helps you understand your non-religious friends better. If you're a nun, maybe it validates what you felt all along. Either way, the science is clear. We all need purpose, belonging, and a coherent way to see the world. Some find it in faith, others find it in reason. Both paths can lead to a flourishing life. Thanks for listening. Stay curious, stay open.